Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Namaste experience. I was just explaining to everyone in the live room that I am up in my room, high in the crow's nest of Namaste Village. I have a little third floor room where I can look down upon everyone and keep track. And also, it's just nice to be up here in the middle of a rainstorm, which we've had this morning. It's been raining very hard, and that means that the noise down in the session room is a bit louder than normal. So I thought I would come up here to share and to join. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we say too much, I want us to join together, as we so often do, in our daily affirmation. Here we go. Let me put this full screen so we can all see it. And I'll invite you to say this aloud and to really mean these words, to know that this is the expression of your soul, of your I am consciousness, which realizes the truth of this now and always. And now we consciously come into communion and remembering of this same truth. So say these words with me. I am as God created me. If I remain as God created me, fear has no meaning. Evil is not real, and misery and death do not exist. I am as God created me. Those words, I am as God created me, so simple. And yet, what more do we need? What more could we ever require but to know and to be in the full experience of that one statement, to know that I am as God created me, and that if I am that now, I am that forever. There's nothing in me that can change in the manner in which I was created and how I remain forever. So we begin every session, every conversation, every moment with that realization that I am now and forever exactly as I was created by God. We could just do that even for an instant. If we could really fully embrace that, the world would change before our eyes. Our lives would take on a meaning that we can't even begin to imagine. We would know what has always been known. So that's why we begin. And today I want to share a little something that I found on my phone, something that I wrote down, I guess about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. Many of you remember that there was a period in which I entered into an anchor hold. In case you weren't around then, I'll explain. So the ministry of the anchorite or the anchoress was a medieval custom where one would devote their lives to contemplation and prayer. And they would live a kind of hermit-like life where a small enclosure would be built usually onto a church. This was very prevalent in England and certain parts of Europe. An enclosure would be built onto a church, and once the anchorite, which was a man, or the anchoress, a woman, once they would enter into the anchor hold, that enclosure, they would never leave again for the rest of their lives. And there would only be 2 access points so that they could have any interaction. There was a window that looked out onto the street or wherever they were, where people could come and talk to them and seek spiritual guidance. And then there was also a window that looked into the church, so they could participate at Mass. And that was it. And the most famous of these anchoresses was Julian of Norwich, someone that we still rely upon for great inspiration today. She entered the anchor hold when she was in her, I think, around 30. Imagine that. And she was there for over 40 years. And she wrote some of the most beautiful examples of spiritual poetry and mysticism that we have ever had. And so this morning I was looking at my phone and I came across something that I wrote here. It was something that Julian had written, and it was all about seeking God. And it touched me very deeply, the desire but to seek God. knowing that on my own I could never find God, but that the divine loves our seeking. The divine loves when we are focused on that communion. And these are the words and the expressions of a mystic. And we're all called to this path. We're all mystics. It used to be that we would think of a mystic as someone who lives their life in a mountain or a cave and doesn't have much to do with the rest of the world. But a modern mystic is one just like all of us, people who have chosen that the divine, that the pursuit of love itself, the essence of love that we sometimes call God, is the only thing that's important to us. And we seek that with our whole heart, our whole mind, and our whole soul. And that's what Julian is writing about here today. So I thought I would share this and see if it inspires you as much as it inspired me. And I want to say beforehand that I usually try and change, especially masculine pronouns, and switch back and forth to he or she, or find other ways, because I like to use inclusive language whenever possible, but it's so often here. I think I'm just going to stick with it the way that Julian wrote it. So just take a deep breath, and I'm going to invite you to receive this and to feel this, not so much with your intellectual mind, but with the heart of your heart that is always seeking to have a full, direct experience of the divine. Here we go. We believe that we hardly see God at all. But what God desires is for us to believe that we see him continuously. What God desires is for us to believe that we see him continuously. It is through this belief that we receive grace. God wishes to be seen and to be sought. God wishes to be seen and to be sought, as any lover would. He wants us to yearn for him and to trust him. God loves it when we seek him. The Holy Spirit fills us with longing, and all we can do is seek and surrender. Then, when it is God's will, what we seek is illuminated with perfect clarity, and we find it. This is grace. What pleases God is our continual search, fueled by faith, hope, and love. I love this. This is what grace is. It pleases God that we continually search, fueled by faith and hope and love, that we continually search for God. What pleases us is encountering the object of our heart's deepest desire, which fills us with joy. And so this is what I came to understand. During the time when it is God's will for the soul to struggle and strive, seeking is as good as finding. Seeking God is as good as finding God. I love this. Whenever we struggle and we're striving to keep coming back to that longing, and to know that that longing, feeling that longing, is just as good as the fulfillment of that longing. God wants us to seek him with all our might until we find him. And when he shows himself to us at last, it is by his special grace. These are the words of a true mystic, someone who has a direct encounter, a direct experience with that love. And isn't that what we're all seeking, a direct experience? Not just a fleeting intellectual idea or concept of what it might mean one day to be fully embraced by this experience, but to desire only that. We talk so often about the importance of desire and the mystical importance of seeking only one thing. And when we seek only one thing, we realize that there's only one, that there's no such thing as two. In fact, what Julian found, even in the context of her very, very strict Catholicism, remember, this is, I don't remember, it's certainly before the English Reformation. So all of England was still very Catholic with very Catholic beliefs. And Julian, in the midst of this mystical experience, she had a discovery. I want to share one paragraph about this discovery that led her into this non-dual experience. She says, this truth, or the truth, is that during my visions, I did not see any sin. I believe that sin has no substance, not a particle of being, and cannot be detected at all except by the pain that it causes. It is only the pain that has substance for a while, and it serves to purify us and makes us know ourselves and ask for mercy. Sin has no substance. Only love is real. Only the eternal is our home. These were all the things that Julian discovered in her little enclosure in Norwich, as she sat and meditated and prayed and communed. She broke through that veil that seems to separate us from that divine encounter. And she realized fully in her being that only love prevails, only love prevails. And now we're called into the same experience, the same knowing. And it comes to us, as Julian so beautifully explains, by desiring only God, only love. Call it what you will, but it's the desiring for that which we know to be fully present and whole everywhere at once. As you know, I gave up believing in a God outside of myself a long time ago. And it comes to the point where we realize that if God is one, that God is one with everything, everywhere, right now and always. I prefer, as some of you know, the force. Maybe that's the closest we can come, this all-pervading force of love that guides us and directs us, gives us our sustenance, our energy, our life. And if we can tune into that force of love, it guides us. But we have to want it above everything else. We have to seek it to the exclusion of everything else in this world. Everything else will come to us easily and naturally. So it's not as if we have to worry about what we are to eat or what we are to wear or what's going to happen to our families or anything like that. We don't have to worry about those things. They'll all be taken care of if we have a single desire for love. And that's why we join here 6 days a week. That's why so many of you come here, and many of you come and you chat before the session just so you can check in with each other, because you feel that love welling up inside you and you have to share it. You have no choice. That's part of this desire that Julian is talking about. It gets to the point where you have no choice. You've broken through. The veil has been ripped down, and all you can do is share that love that you feel. It happens in community, as we find here. It happens in every moment with whoever we see or meet or even think of. We become a vessel of that love, always. So seek and find. Remember what Julian said, that seeking is the same as finding. It's not as if we seek for years and decades, as if walking through a desert, never receiving the life-giving water that we desire. It's within us always. That life-giving spring is always within us. And it is in the desire, the seeking for only love that we realize that I am that. I am that love. I need to do nothing but have a single desire. So Brother Stephen, you're kind of, this is kind of like, the Johnny Carson show or some of the other late night shows where the host is on vacation and we have a guest host stepping in. So I'll just say, here's Stephen.
All right, I'll be the Ed McMahon. Oh boy. Well, as when we used to do,
remember him.
when we used to do this before, I'd make some notes while you were speaking. And then by the time you get finished, it's like, oh, you already said it. I don't have to say anything because you wrap it up. But you made a great point at the end. And that's what was coming up for me early on is, the seeking, to know that the seeking is in the finding. I mean, we talked yesterday a little bit about the intellect getting involved. And sometimes the intellect will like to partner up with that ego a little bit. And if we look at it simply at that level, the seeking, our conditioning will take us back to, like you said, seek and find, or when we were kids, hide and go seek, as if it's something that's missing. So what we have to strive for is that our seeking becomes a seeing, because there's no place we can go where love is not. So we're not seeking the absence of something that is, perhaps we could say, hiding right in front of us. And I love the synchronicity here because I did a lot of writing this morning, and almost everything we talked about today is included in today's writing, which is, it just happens all the time and it's beautiful. But let the seeking become the seeing. Let the seeking be a realization of that which is there and is always there. We use the analogy of the veil, let the veil vanish so you could see what is real and what is true. And let the seeking, another way you can do this too, is let the seeking be a game trying to find that which is not God, which is not love. And that might be very, very hard to do. So I just caution that in the seeking, if it's a constant state of seeking, that we're not moving into a state of judgment and rejecting something because of appearance, saying, no, that can't be God. No, that's not love. And on, a series of rejections based on the limited input from sense consciousness, from those 5 antennae of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. So that's really what's coming up for me. And it's, and we can look at a lot of the instruction that we hear, let the seeking be the seeing. Yesterday, we closed out with wanting peace. Let that wanting also be something that we know is already there, that we want to uncover the illusion that seems to block us from what is real. And usually these are intellectual constructs or something that the ego moves in the way to block our vision, to obstruct our perception and our perspective. So I'd like to offer from that close yesterday, that beautiful piece, I want the peace of God. And how often we do that. And especially me, it's like, I got to get back to my peace. Leave me alone, leave me in my space, because I got to find that peace again. Not that it's gone, not that it isn't there, just like the seeking that we do, but to find it within us. So I took that piece and I evolved it yesterday. For me, yesterday is, we ended with a beautiful, I want the peace of God. But knowing it's already there, I turned that into an affirmation. The holy sacred presence of peace is wholly present in me right here and right now. I am the holy sacred presence of peace. I am that. I am. another synchronicity from today. I am that presence of peace. And when I affirm that over and over again for me, and perhaps somebody might feel called to do that, you find it. You can't help but not find it. So although you seek for it, it's not something that it's missing. It's just something that has been veiled. And so all this seeking and all this searching is really for something that we must know is already there and usually right in front of us. Thanks for letting me share, James.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Stephen. By the way, I have been called to let you know, I don't even know if you do know this, that we have a program here because we are an official Unity Church on Sunday. And we always have one or two Unity ministers here for a whole month at a time, staying with us, sharing with us. Unfortunately, our Unity minister for this month had to cancel because of something in the family. So we don't have one this month. And so, of course, Reverend Johannes is going to be taking over. But Johannes and Jack wanted me to tell you, you are very welcome to come and join us for a whole month. We'll pay for everything. All you need to do is show up.
Yeah, I saw that on the Unity Worldwide Ministries page, and I was just at the Unity convention. Of course, I saw Martha Creek, who was just down there not too long ago. And I, of course, know Jim Lee that you just had last month. You know, we're both Detroit boys. And but, you know, I have the obligation. I do pastor a Unity community here in Northwest Florida as well. And as soon as I can figure out how to work that getaway for a month, I would absolutely love to do that. So
maybe I'll go take care of your Florida church for a month and you come here.
Oh, that would work. That might work out really, really well.
I'm not sure my Namaste community would be very happy with me leaving for a month.
Yeah, I hear that. But there's all kind of different possibilities. So that is something after I get done with this project that I'll take a closer look at.
And while we're still here, I wanted to share one more thing with everyone, since we're looking at some of the great medieval mystics and their teachings, especially women like Julian. I want to talk about another one of my very favorites, which I'm sure you probably know who I'm going to talk about. In fact, right behind me, I have, this is a relic. You'll see a lot of relics that for example, let me think, this one right here that I'm pointing at, this is an actual, in the very center here is a very, very tiny, tiny piece of the habit of St. Francis of Assisi. A relic from a Catholic point of view is either a piece of bone or cloth or hair from a saint. And what I have here is a relic. You can almost see it. It says St. Clare of Assisi. So this is a tiny relic from St. Clare. And I want to share something that Clare wrote. But in order to understand this fully, you need to hear the story, because this is not only a story about Clare, but another one of the truly great mystics from Europe, a woman who was named, or we often call, Agnes of Prague. Now, her story, I mean, someone needs to make a movie out of the life of Agnes of Prague, because she was a princess, literally. She was the daughter of the king of Bohemia. And she was one of the most, probably the most sought after women in all of Europe at that time, not only because of her great beauty, but because marrying her, of course, would be a way of bringing kingdoms together. So the Holy Roman Emperor was engaged to her when she was about 13 as a way of consolidating power. But then the emperor died, and that marriage never happened. They tried to do the same with his son, and other kings would bring their sons to try and marry the great Agnes. But Agnes had a deep yearning and longing only for God. And she just didn't want to have anything to do with this jostling for power. So one night, just as Clare had done many years earlier, she escaped from her home. And this was a very difficult thing to do, given how guarded she must have been as a princess. But she did escape, and she hid in one of Clare's convents. And she became so entranced and enamored by their devotion and their life that when they finally found her, they had no choice but to leave her because she refused to marry. She had cut her hair already and she had given her life to God. And Claire would write her letters talking to her about the holiness of her decision to leave such a life of wealth and privilege. And you need to know that the poor Clares, as they're called now, this order of nuns that were imitating what Francis was doing, they were serious about their poverty. They were serious about the way they lived their life, even more so than the brothers. They lived cloistered lives. They had nothing but the joy that would emanate. Anyone who has ever been to Assisi and gone down to San Damiano, where Claire lived for so many years and her sisters lived until the 1800s, you can still feel that prayer and that joy. But I want to read just a little bit of one of the letters that Claire wrote to Agnes, just to give you another view of this longing for love itself. Claire wrote, "When you have loved him, then so shall you be loved. When you have touched him, then so shall you be touched and become pure. When you have accepted him, you will become as a virgin. Whose power is stronger, whose generosity is more abundant, whose appearance is more beautiful, whose love is more tender, whose courtesy more gracious, in whose embrace you are already caught up, who has adorned your breast with precious stones and has placed priceless pearls to your ears, and has surrounded you with sparkling gems, as though blossoms of springtime, and placed on your head a golden crown as a sign of your holiness." Those are the words and the expressions of a mystic who is truly in love and seeks only that love, seeks only the beloved in every moment, in every one, in a flower, in a gem, in the sunshine, in the light of the moon or the sun, in every moment, sees and knows that seeking and finding are the same. So when we seek after love alone finds us, because that's the only thing that there is. And each one of us is called to be a mystic today in the world. We don't have to close ourselves off as Julian or Agnes or Claire did. That's always something we could do, but most of us are not called to live a life like that. We are called to live in the marketplace and to use the evidence of divinity that's all around us, the evidence of divinity that's always all around us, that we can see in the eyes of everyone that we meet, everyone that we encounter. That's the reason we're here. That's the reason why most of us are drawn to come together here every day, just to reignite that spark, to remember that this is our only task, our only role is to love that which has always been loved. And I think I'll just leave it there, to love that which has always been loved and is forever lovable. And that's you. That's the truth of you, forever lovable, no matter what. Amen, 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 y punto. So thank you so much, Reverend Stephen. Thanks for sitting in for our dear sister, Vicky.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm going to just stay up in my room most of the day. As you can see, I'm still working through my cold, but feeling much better today. And why don't we go ahead, and we haven't closed with the prayer of protection for a little while. So I'm going to go ahead and put us onto full screen and we'll bring that up. Here we go. One moment. So go ahead and join me in our special version of the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever God is, I am, and all is well. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.
Happy Tuesday.
Thank you.
Hey,
I
everyone.
love you all.
Bye. Love you.
Many
For
blessings.
now.
Thank you, James.
Bye now. See you tomorrow.
Bye.